an intermediate update on the Jouef little industrial shunting locomotive. My locomotive, the Jouef one, only came with this leaflet, which has many languages, no pictures, but just some text explaining general locomotive operating and maintenance, and a little bit of text about safety. In particular, it didn't say anything about how to take the body off, and I wanted to take the body off so that I don't damage the valve gear, running gear, while taking bits off the body. Now, fortunately, very fortunately, I did also have an electro-tren model, the NCB version, and that came with a separate leaflet. It just has electro-tren on the top and Hornby on the bottom, and it does have a picture of the locomotive. It's not completely helpful, but the first thing is I said I wasn't sure if the locomotive was DCC ready. It does show the circuit board here. It does show that the 2 screws to take the chassis out, and 2 screws for separating the chassis, the wiper and wheels from the rest of the motor chassis. But it doesn't say which 2. It's not clear from the diagram which 2, because when you turn the engine over, there are 4 screws underneath it, and the 2 screws that you have to undo, I'll just zoom in a little. Let's take it to there. Is it focused? Yes, probably focused enough. Are the front one nearest the buffers and the centrally mounted one between the back wheels. So not the furthest most one, and not this one here. These 2 hold the chassis together. So that one and that one are the ones that allow you to remove the chassis section from the body. So it's the furthest most forward one and the central one at the back. And that's the space inside. As we can see, not a lot of space, but it is now absolutely clear, although it doesn't say DCC decoder fitting on there, that there's provision on those 6 pins, inline pins, for a 6-pin inline decoder. And there's a little printed circuit there that should take it, and if I can find a 6-pin decoder, I can try that. So while the body's off, there's consideration there for putting the decoder in. Most of the space within the body has been filled with cast material, but what they have done is provided an area here ready cut away. So if you've got a decoder with flying leads, you can insert the decoder into this area here of the chassis. I'm not quite sure how that's showing up in the light. Yes, that's better. So you see this cutaway area here, which is inside the tank, the pannier tank, is big enough for you to put a reasonable sized decoder, and then the plug can go onto that, the 6-pin plug. There isn't any room the other side, and clearly there's not enough room in the smoke box to fit anything. Now, removing the sand box has left a hole in the top, so I'm going to have to clear that. That just leaves 2 little pips, which are fine. Those 2 little pips could prototypically be the ends of some steam tubes or something like that. I'm not going to try and remove the pipes, the pipe work from the boiler. So that's useful. I'm sure there is other information elsewhere, but certainly not information provided with this on decoder fitting, nor information that this bit here is provided. The instruction leaflet, if I zoom out, I'm sorry, it's on the spotlight, does give some rudimentary information. It's got 14 items, but item 5 is just identified as a printed circuit. It doesn't say it's got a decoder socket, and there's nothing about where you might fit a decoder. So no information on decoder fitting provided with the Electro-Trend model. I'm sure you'd be able to do it though. If you took it apart, it would be fairly obvious to you as to where that decoder would fit in there, and that all you need to know in advance of buying one is that you need this one with a plug on it that's 6 pins. Well, I've removed the blanking plug just to confirm that it's a 6-pin socket. So you need a decoder with this type of plug on the end to go into that type of socket to insert a decoder into this locomotive. In the meantime though, I'm going to run it in on a DC layout, and I'm going to continue with my changes, but just with a bit of hacking. I feel that already the outline, without the whistles on the roof and without the sandbox on top of the boiler, I think it's improved it. There's potential obviously to change the chimney for something else, but I'm not going to do that just now. Back to modifications. The engine number just scrapes off, and I think after a little weathering that will blend in. I thought for British Outline Industrial Loco, the gold lining on the back, which is missing from the NCB version, looks a little bit gaudy, so I've removed that, and I still do intend to plate up the middle window. The NCB version retains these control, whether they're steam control or what, I don't know. At the back there might be injector control. To remove those, it's quite simply, you just prise out from the top and then they just unplug from the bottom. They're separately applied detail. You can set them on one side, and then if you later decided you liked the look of it and you wanted to add them, it's a simple matter of just reinserting them. But that simplifies the outline of the locomotive. I do quite like the red lining that's on there, and I'll see how, so I'm not going to scrape it off, I'll see how it blends in with some weathering, and there's potential to do the addition of more detail. I would like to add a coal bunker at some stage, but that is slightly more complicated, slightly more involved bit of modification. I think I'm getting close to a point where, with a little bit of filling on the top, I know it looks a bit rough from above, and the filling of that window, I can weather this particular thing. Use a scalpel. Some of the lining, if you want, can be removed with your fingernail, depending on how you like to do these things. The fingernail is softer than the scalpel and therefore is less likely to damage the plastic underneath. I'm going to leave a little bit of the gold printing at the top of the handrails there to represent perhaps some brass detail at the top there, but take the rest that might have been brass detail around the opening in the cab side. If the gold lining doesn't come off easily enough with the fingernail, then the back of the scalpel blade is quite, I won't say sharp enough, but quite adequate for scraping. You don't need to have a sharp edge, the blunt edge of that, and I can finish that off with my fingernail, get it neater and cleaner. Well, the cab is demountable. I don't know if you can see it there, but I've broken of one of the lugs. It may even have been held on with a spot of glue on these two lugs here. So unless you want it off, I would say exercise extreme caution or don't take it off. The helpful person at Hoyles Model Railways in Chorley told me a bit more about these, and he has modified one of these with a tin roof over the footplate. You can see the back of the boiler now, and with the cab off it's possible to see some of the detail which wasn't quite so visible before. And now with my gold and silver felt tip pens I'm going to be able to pick out some of that detail, and then I'm just going to replace this cab. But it means that I might be able to fill the hole in the back window more readily with the cab loose than with it attached. But as I say, I've got a suspicion that this was quite firmly either glued with those, or those pins or locating lugs had been melted over once it was into the body. So not as on some Hornby models where it's easy to take off. It was very tight and close fit, so it didn't look obvious that the cab was a separate piece. It must have been in terms of manufacture, I guess. Okay, the other thing is there is a plastic insert there, which must be curved. I say plastic. I'm pretty sure it's plastic. Maybe not. I was going to say it doesn't appear to be adding much weight, but that isn't plastic. That's a metallic material. So, yeah, presumably that is there to add a little bit of extra weight. So every possible area in here where there could be weight on the chassis is filled with something. It does, on this Jouef sold model, say electro-tren made in China on the moulding, just confirming that the moulding is exactly the same as that sold under the electro-tren name. Well, I've taken the Jouef little Loco and just hacked it a little bit, chopped off the sandbox, used some checker plate to fill in the back window, and added a couple of Loco crew. And I'm not very good at weathering, so don't look at the weathering. I also put some random blobs of paint, if it focuses, onto the back head, so that it looks like there is something in there, some detail. The detail's picked out, not specifically, prototypically, but you do see something reflecting off it as you look through it now, and a couple of crew in there. Right, the thing will run well. It's got a well-respected chassis. I had a quick look for it. Gauge Master and Hattons are out of stock of it. That suggests that there's plenty of people out there who will have bought them because they presumably were in stock with these things. I do know that Hoyles still have them. Hoyles Model Railways.co.uk, and On-Tracks, I believe, are the importers of these devices. So if you look at the On-Tracks website, you'll see what the availability is, and you might be able to contact them to find out where you can get it from. But I'm quite satisfied with it. Price-wise, overseas it seems to be available for between 45 and 47 euros. It still seems to be available in France as a Jouef model. But I was wondering, well, are there Locos lower price than ours. No, I would say that for this Loco, €45, £45, even £47 is an excellent price. It is the price for it, it's the going rate, whether it's in the UK or abroad. But most other Locos made by Jouef or Electrotren are a lot more expensive. I mean, they are larger Locos, and I can't see similar ones to this one being made apart from liveries changes to the existing chassis and body moulding, because it seems that any newer locomotives are going to be a lot more expensive. So I would say this is an excellent buy. And see what has happened to the Pug. The Hornby Pug was available for under £30. If you look back in the older catalogues, they've made no changes to it at all, but the price has increased. So it's Hornby who own Jouef Electrotren, so I can see the same thing happening to this. But fortunately, for the time being, as it's marketed as a toy by Jouef, I mean for children, they've kept the price down, and so what we have is the potential for a little shunting loco that can be used on a little shunting layout like this quite nicely. So, and very easily, I mean, as you can see, I'm no weather expert, I'm no expert at hacking things about, and I've just done some chopping. Thank you.